Okay, first things first, using that paper template, you'll notice this section here and this section here is cut on the fold, so that when you open it up you'll end up with a piece like that. And you're going to repeat that for the outer section of the stocking and for the lining of the stocking. You will also need to cut the top section 7 centimeters by 17.5 out of a contrasting fabric such as this. Okay, using the template underneath and placing a scrap piece of calico over the top, using a pen that will disappear with ironing, such as one of these, which is called a Uniball Phantom. Draw your design on, or it could be chalk, and then we're going to paint it using Dylon fabric paints. Okay, so you can now see I have painted the fabric, and what I have chosen to do is, in a palette, mix a bit of the green with a bit of the dark blue, and I've got 2 different tones, so that's the original green and then that's the dark blue. It doesn't matter if I paint over my lines, in fact it's better if I do, because we're going to be trimming it away in a minute anyway. You'll notice I haven't put the berries on because they'll be a separate piece of fabric. Okay, the fabric paint is now dried and I've ironed it to fix it, and what I'm going to be using is this stuff, and you can see it's the layer of webbing. It's actually a type of glue called Wonder Web or Wonder Under. There you go. This is an old piece, I've had it for some time and I've split it so you can see, but there's a layer of glue and a layer of paper, but you'll find it should all be stuck together like that. So with the rough side down, you cover up your piece of work, and then I'm going to iron that on. Make sure it does cover it completely. I've cut it so it actually matches the back side, so don't forget to turn it over. You'll see that fits better now. And with the rough side down, paper side up, just going to iron that on. Okay, and then with a pair of scissors I'm then going to cut around my shape more accurately. Okay, as you can see I've now cut it out accurately. We can now take the paper backing off to reveal that glue, because it's the glue that we want. So if I take that off like that, whoops, and then we can place it back where we want it to be on our stocking, but you have to remember your seam allowance, so you need to be careful where you're positioning it. It doesn't matter if it goes across the crease, because that's the other part of the boot and you're not going to sew down there, but here you do need to be careful. And once you've got it in the position you want it to be, nearly there, then we can iron over that. Now if you prefer you can put a cloth over the top, but I think mine should be okay because my iron isn't too hot at the moment, and then that will be glued on. Doesn't take long. Okay, what I'm going to do now is free motion around the shape to hold it down more firmly. I've got an embroidery foot on. The teeth underneath have been lowered already. What I must remember to do is actually lower the foot itself, and then I'm going to take the needle into the fabric, pick up the bobbin underneath, bring it forward so I can see the bobbin. It hasn't come through, so we'll do that again. Pick up the bobbin, and then we should be able to, it has just come up, should be able to just sew. So I've sewn space for a couple of times, trim it off, move that, and sew. Okay, so just to remind you what I'm doing, I'm just sewing around the shape, and I can now move my stitching backwards and forwards, following around my design. Because the dog teeth underneath aren't working, I'm in control. So I'm just using the needle as though it is a pen, and I can go up the middle and add the veins while I'm there. There's the veins. And I'm going to do this all the way around. What you can do, you'll notice it's actually sort of in places starting to bunch. Now that could be a couple of reasons. My needle needs changing. It might be that because it's so small, it might be a good idea to have it in a frame. And I've got a nice steady speed. Right, that's because there's no tension on the fabric, so I'm just going to stop and get some repositioning. There we go. So I can put a bit of tension back on that fabric. So it is because it needs a frame. If you don't want to use a frame because of the odd shape of the fabric, which it is in this case, what you could do is put a piece of backing fabric, a kind on violin, and I've chosen to use quite a neutral green colour thread, but it could be black if you want it to show, or even like a dark, very dark blue would look good, or you could do it in a metallic gold or silver if you want to give it that really festive look. It doesn't really matter if you go slightly wonky or miss a bit or go off it, because it's all part of the look. Because it's bonder webbed down, it shouldn't lift off. Just going to come up now to do the vein, and I think my bobbins run out. Okay. Next stage, as you can see, what I've done is I've cut out some berries. They've all had bonder web or wander under ironed on. The paper's been peeled off. I've cut them and I've positioned them where I want them to go. I'm going to iron them on, and then I'm going to repeat the sewing process around the berries. And so I shall stop now just so that I can iron and start on that. Okay, the berries are now ironed on. I've changed my thread to a metallic thread, and I should really change my needle to a metallic needle. So if the thread keeps breaking, I know it's because I haven't got the right needle on. Just bringing the bobbin thread up, there it is, to the front so I can see it. Bringing both threads forwards and grab it. I want to come. There we go. I can now start stitching, and like before, a nice steady speed, a couple of stitches in the same space, trim them off. Can't get brilliantly close, it matter, you can trim it again later, that way, and then double check your foot still down, and you can sew away. And again, the metallic thread, I'm going to go around it a couple of times just to bring it out. That looks nice. Move on to the next one. Around that a couple of times. On to the next one. Around that a couple of times. Now, if I want to go to the next set of berries, I can wiggle my needle a little bit just to release the bobbin, the top threads. And then when I'm in the right place, lower and start again. And again, go round and round. Now, so I've used a metallic bronze thread. You can again do it in black, red, any colour. And that's that one. Right, I'm hoping you can see that I've placed the piece of top fabric, the little strip that was 7 by 17.5, across the top, covering up the fabric, but so we matched up the top seam edge, and we're just going to sew that top seam edge. Now, if your sewing machine has got a back stitch or a knot stitch, then use it. If it hasn't, then you have to do a bit of a reverse, then do a bit of reverse first. But my machine's got a dot knot, so I'm just going to press the knot, so it will do an automatic knot on my machine. And now I'm going to go forwards. And you'll notice the edge of the foot on the edge of the fabric. I'll slow it down a bit. Edge of the foot on the edge of the fabric, so it's a small seam allowance. And then at the end, either reverse or do a knot if your machine has a knot, automatic knot. Then we cut it off. We're going to repeat, so that's what you've got. You've now got that there. You're then going to get your lining fabric, and you're also going to line that up over the top like that, and we're going to run it through the machine the same. If you want to pin it, you can. If you don't want to, that's up to you. Not at the beginning, and we're going to sew to the end. When you get to the end, either do a reverse stitch or your knot. And we take it out. And then what you should have is the stockings joined together like that. What we're then going to do is we are then going to fold the fabric that way. Okay, and we are then going to sew all the way around the stocking, leaving a gap on the lining here, front edge, or on the boot end, but we sew all round. It looks a little bit like a weird looking dog bone with a red strip in the middle, or the topping strip in the middle. So I shall pin that up and then I shall machine it. Right, okay, I've pinned all the way around the stocking. I'm now going to do my back stitch, or knot in this case. It is right sides together. I'm keeping quite close to the edge of the fabric. Slow the speed down a bit. If I need to stop and lower the needle, I will, and just change direction. So I might do a couple of stitches, I might then stop, and then going to lift the foot, and I'm going to change direction. Now you'll also notice I just sewed over that pin because the pin was at 90 degrees to the fabric. If it wasn't, I would probably hit it, and that would not a good thing, might break my needle. So can you see I need to stop, I'm lowering my needle, I'm just turning, do a couple of stitches. I'm going to slow my needle, take my pin out. You'll notice my machine will keep beeping every time I stop. It's because it's an automatic, it hasn't got a pedal. So, and again, as you can see, lifting the foot a fraction, but with the needle in at all times. And I'm going round. Pull the fabric round a bit. Now I'm going to get to the point where I want to stop on that front lining, and that's the gap I'm going to pull through. So I'm going to stop there and do a knot, and then I'm going to move on. Oops. Move up a gap. So I've moved up the gap. I've still got the thread attached because I can trim that off. Start another knot, and then start again. And I'm going from that boot to the next boot now. So I'm going across the top trim, and those points are very important to make sure they match. Now I can see my holly leaf just there, so I've got to be careful not to catch it. So I'm just... Okay, what I've done then is I've finished sewing all the way around, leaving the gap on the lining just here, gone all the way around there. You can now see that I've also cut little notches out on the curves, just so to either to remove the bulk or help it to actually bend. And then what I'm going to do is with this gap here is pull it through the correct way. So I shall just open that up and pull it through. Right. As you can see, it's all been pulled through the hole that was here. Now before I stuff the lining inside the sock, I will need to close that section there, and I shall just do a running stitch to join it, or I can do a little hand slip stitch, but I've got the machine here, so I'm just going to machine it. Okay, I've machined that section closed, and what I will do is I shall need to just trim off any loose threads. The sharp pair of scissors would be good, and then I can pop that part of the stocking, the lining, inside. And here we go, here is the finished stocking. So the lining's all inside. I've just turned this down. You could add some lace, piece of ribbon, and any other decorative stitches, but you need to really do that before you sort and attach all the lining and stitch around. That's your finished stocking.